Thank you. The next item of business is a statement by Kate Forbes on Scottish Government response to the... From Jamie Green.
My apologies for not giving advance notice. I appreciate the Deputy Presiding Officer has just taken the chair. The statement which we're about to hear from the Deputy First Minister relates to a report which we have not seen. Indeed, the report only went on the Scottish Government's website at 20 minutes past 2 this afternoon during topical questions, which is precisely the time that this item of business was due to commence. I raise this because it's a 94-page report which contains 20 very specific and quite serious recommendations that I think we should debate properly. The problem is that the Minister's statement will relate to the content of the report, but no member has had the opportunity to yet read the report and therefore scrutinise the content of this independent report. The irony not being lost that this is a report about this government's lack of transparency, yet we are to debate the content of it without seeing it, and that's a practice that is far too common, I'm afraid. Presiding Officer, could I make a request that this session or this item of business is postponed to allow members to analyse and scrutinise the content of this report, which would put us in a better position to have a sensible and constructive conversation with the Deputy First Minister about its content therein.
I thank Mr Green for his point of order. Of course, it is a matter for the Government as to the information it puts into the public domain in advance of ministerial statements. Of course, I would always encourage the Government to maximise the sharing of information where this is possible, in order, of course, to facilitate proper parliamentary... excuse me. I am speaking and I do not want any cross-bench chat. That's very discourteous. As I was saying, I would always encourage the Government to maximise the sharing of information wherever possible in order to facilitate proper parliamentary scrutiny. In fact, the member will be aware that Parliament has agreed to this statement taking place, and therefore we will now proceed with the statement. Thank you. So the next item of business is a statement by Kate Forbes on Scottish Government response to the Martins Review on the use of mobile messaging apps and non-corporate technology. The Deputy First Minister will take questions at the end of her statement, and therefore there should be no interventions nor interruptions. And I call on Deputy First Minister. Up to 10 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. My statement today is to respond on behalf of the Scottish Government to the publication of the Martins report into the use of mobile messaging applications and non-corporate technology in the Scottish Government. I'd like to thank the reviewer, Emma Martins, for undertaking this significant and important piece of work for us, and the Scottish Government staff for participating in the review with integrity and candour. The use of WhatsApp in government and the subsequent management of these messages was scrutinised heavily during Module 2A of the UK COVID-19 inquiry and thereafter in this chamber. To be clear, the use of mobile messaging applications during the pandemic, a time of unprecedented and particularly difficult circumstances, which required quick decisions and actions to support the response and protect the people of Scotland, was understandable in such pressing times. Like many workplaces, ministers and staff adapted at rapid pace to deliver what was required during an emergency response. And at that time, a national lockdown was declared, restricting in-person contact. The Scottish Government's policy on mobile messaging applications states that any material relevant to decisions has to be recorded in the corporate record, as all ministerial decisions are. Scottish Government staff were acting within that policy, but with hindsight, we have reflected, and I will set out a revised position today. In January of this year, the former First Minister commissioned an externally led review into the Scottish Government's use of mobile messaging applications and non-corporate technology. I'm absolutely committed to the highest standards of transparency, accountability and openness in the way that we govern on behalf of the people of Scotland. I welcome this report and commend it to Parliament. The report highlights that everything that we do should be underpinned by our service to the people of Scotland. And it commends the Scottish Civil Service vision, which is entitled In the Service of Scotland. The report contains recommendations that are far-reaching across many aspects of how the Scottish Government operates, and many of those recommendations are specifically for the independent, non-partisan civil service. Others are for ministers, and I'll address both categories in this statement. The Government is committed to ensuring the highest standards of transparency, integrity, accountability and honesty are adhered to at every level of leadership. The positive work that we've done to support our relationship with the people of Scotland is emphasised in the Martins report, such as the comprehensive information management strategy of the Government. Work like this will increase trust over time, and a response to this report provides opportunities to further build on that trust. Specifically for ministers, the First Minister published his updated ministerial code earlier today. The code sets out the standards expected of all ministers, standards that the people of Scotland deserve of their leaders. It enshrines the commitment we all make to uphold the 7 principles of public life and to adhere to the values and the principles of service. The changes that the First Minister has introduced in his edition of the code mark the most fundamental developments to the code since the introduction of independent advisers in 2008, and is furthered by the appointment of 3 new advisers into the role as announced on the 6th of December. In publishing this edition of the code, the Government has also published the terms of reference for the advisers for the first time. That sets out the detail of their strengthened role and the process of independent scrutiny and advice that they can provide to the First Minister. The new code has also been restructured into 3 distinct sections: Ministers' standards of conduct, Ministers' interests and Ministers and the procedures of government. This brings ethical standards and public service values to the forefront of the new code and ensures that the code reflects the governing rules and procedures that underpin guidance to ministers, including, for the first time, an explicit commitment around the use of corporate communications channels. The Scottish Ministerial Code is only one aspect of the standards required in relation to public life that Ms Martin's report mentions. She also addresses the Civil Service Code. That's not within the power of Scottish Government ministers, so I am writing to the UK Government to draw their attention to the report and to ask for their assistance on recommendations relating to the Civil Service Code, which are within their powers. Civil servants within the Scottish Government have undertaken work to develop a clear vision and a set of values for the organisation. The vision in the service of Scotland and the underpinning values of integrity, inclusivity, collaboration, innovation and kindness are promoted internally to all staff through all communications and leadership, and targeted externally towards those who wish to work for the Scottish Government and serve the people of Scotland. We're leading with our ambition to be an ethical digital nation. The vision is for a society where people can trust public services and businesses, to respect privacy and to be open and honest in the way that data is used. A place where children and vulnerable people are protected from harm, where digital technologies adopt the principles of privacy, resilience and harm reduction by design and are inclusive, fair and useful. We recognise that access to information is a key pillar of enabling democratic scrutiny and participation. The FOI Improvement Plan is already making improvements. It's developed comprehensive training programmes and detailed guidance, and it supports staff to respond more quickly and more effectively to requests. The Scottish Information Commissioner has highlighted the response rate of the Scottish Government's current level of performance, which has been maintained in the context of a continued increase in request numbers. We're now responding to over 95% of FOI requests on time, and that reflects the Government's commitment to transparency. We've also made progress when it comes to the productive outcome to the Progress Update review undertaken in 2023 by the National Records of Scotland in relation to Records Management Plan. The outcome of the 2024 review, which we've submitted, is expected early in the new year, and we'll publish this on the Scottish Government's website, as we've done in previous years. One of the key questions asked in the review was around the use of mobile messaging apps, such as WhatsApp. The report provides a clear recommendation in this regard, and we have taken the decision to end the use of mobile messaging applications across the Scottish Government. That will happen by spring 2025. Government business should happen on government systems which are secure, searchable and allow the appropriate sharing of information in line with our statutory duties. Scottish Government ministers and staff will not be permitted to use WhatsApp or any other non-corporate communications channel to conduct government business. To give effect to this, non-corporate mobile messaging applications will, by spring, be removed from devices, and our technical environment will be configured so that they cannot be used. Clearly, in our modern world, we also need to ensure that we have robust business continuity arrangements in place, including the ability to communicate in the event of a cyber attack, removing access to corporate technology. For those circumstances, very clear guidelines will be produced to ensure that every person in the government knows what's permitted. We'll take time to put this in place to ensure that all necessary actions required to give effect to this decision are achieved. The UK and the Scottish COVID-19 inquiries are currently ongoing. These inquiries are of vital importance to ensure that we learn lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic, which will enhance our preparations for any future health emergencies. We've already received the UK COVID Inquiries Module 1 report and will provide detailed responses to its recommendations in due course, within the timescales set out by the Chair. And of course, we will engage fully with the UK and Scottish inquiries' future reports. This review is part of our commitment to learning from our response to the pandemic and improving our practices. This decision aligns secure, open, transparent governance, underpinned by sound records management policy and practice and the well-being of staff, with the values and the vision of the Scottish Government. In closing, I believe the review will continue to see public services being improved, as the recommendations on which we've already taken tangible actions will improve records management practice and processes and improve trust in government. The report will be available on the Scottish Government's website from this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy First Minister. The Deputy First Minister will now take questions on the issues raised in her statement. I intend to allow around 20 minutes, after which we will move on to the next item of business. And it would be helpful if those members who wish to ask a question were to press the request to speak buttons. And I call on Sanjay Gohani.
Deputy Presiding Officer, in accordance with the Ministerial Code section 10.7h, we should have received Ms Martin's report with the statement. The Ministerial Code was breached today and no apology has come. A declaration of interest as a practising NHS GP. Deputy Presiding Officer, how many First Ministers does it take to work out that conducting government business on WhatsApp is wrong? This statement is a clear admission by the Scottish Government that what they have been doing and what they did over the COVID pandemic was wrong. Not just the use, but the predetermined deletion of messages. Jason Leach said it was his pre-bedtime ritual to delete all WhatsApp messages, and a senior civil servant reminded everyone that WhatsApp messages are FOIable and to delete them. What were they hiding? We will never know. Given that the Deputy First Minister retained all of her WhatsApp messages, does she think it was morally correct for others to delete their messages? Why are the Scottish Government not banning the use of WhatsApp for government business with immediate effect in the Ministerial Code? And does this ban include all personal devices?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, on the questions that Sandesh Gohani has asked, I refer him to the statement that I have just made in terms of our decision to ensure that WhatsApp and other messaging applications will not just not be permitted, but the environment will be configured so that they can't be accessed on government devices. In terms of the further points he makes, The reason we have come to this decision is precisely because we do value openness and transparency, and we want to ensure that Parliament is given the opportunity to scrutinise all decisions that are made. As he knows, all government decisions are recorded and they are available to scrutinise by the Parliament. The last point I would make is that in order to ensure that this is done appropriately and effectively, we will implement it by spring 2025, and that will be accompanied by robust training internally in government so that everybody understands the policy.
Before I call the next speaker, could I remind all members who are wishing to speak in the debate, please ensure the request to speak buttons are pressed. I call Daniel Johnson.
And can I begin, Deputy President, by apologising about the previous comments? Can I associate myself with both Jamie Green's point of order and also Sandesh Gulhani's question about the ministerial code? I think it's certainly in question. And given that the date of the report states November, the government has had plenty of time to publish it. Most importantly, the principle here is it's not just about electronic communications or freedom of information requests. This is about ensuring that all dialogue, deliberation, as well as decisions themselves are captured so we have a full public record. And what the government has been doing has been editing and removing critical information that should be part of the public record. So can I ask, given that the statement refers to non-corporate messaging apps, presumably there will be corporate apps that are sanctioned by the government, either in whole or in part, such as Microsoft Teams and SMS. So if so, can the Deputy First Minister state what steps will be taken to record all of those messages? Can she guarantee that no personal devices are being or will be used to conduct government business or carry out government discussions? And finally, does she agree with my framing of this? This isn't just about government business. This is about capturing discussion, dialogue and deliberation between ministers, civil servants and special advisers in the round. Thank you.
First Minister.
Well, first of all ministers have a corporate phone and they are encouraged to use it. It will be made clear through guidance and training that mobile messaging on personal phones should not be used for official business. In terms of staff, all staff who require one will be offered a corporate phone. And as with any change, as I set out to Sandesh Gulhani, there will be a period of time provided to support staff through that change. Thereafter, any usage not in line with guidance will be dealt with under existing policies. He asked what platforms will be permitted. All staff are advised to use corporately provided platforms like Teams to communicate. My understanding is that MSPs also use Teams and are familiar with that platform. So corporate control channels can be used, and as has been the case for many years, that will include email on the corporate phone, and I hope that answers his question.
I call Rona Mackay to be followed by Brian Whittle. Ms Mackay.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Scottish Government's commitment to continually maintain and improve performance and openness and transparency is very welcome. Can the Deputy First Minister advise what steps are being taken to monitor performance so that momentum is kept up?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, Rona Mackay refers to our FOI compliance. We monitor FOI compliance very carefully in order to maintain that exceptional 95% delivery. And I will highlight again that we have maintained that 95% delivery despite there being a significant increase in the number of FOI requests.
I call Brian Whittle to be followed by Jackie Dunbar.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Can I say I can almost recognise why the Scottish Government, in an emergency such as they did, went to and used WhatsApp messages almost. But the trust that the Cabinet Secretary spoke about has been eroded because there was a consistent denial of the use of WhatsApp and a denial that they were deleted until they were found out. And that can the only conclusion you can come to is the Scottish Government were hiding something. So why does it require an independent review to finally get the Scottish Government to accept their use of social media platforms to perform government business was inappropriate and, to Sandesh Gulhani's point, was it morally correct?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, I emphasise again, as I did in my statement, that at the time of the pandemic, which hugely decreased in-person contact, Scottish Government ministers and civil servants adapted to respond at rapid pace to deliver services and facilities for the safety and security of the people of Scotland. And at the time, in using the WhatsApp and other channels, they were operating within policies. With the COVID inquiries, we are reviewing and learning the lessons, and today I have made the announcement that we will no longer use messaging apps.
I call Jackie Dunbar to be followed by Paul O'Kane. Mr Dunbar.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I ask for further detail in relation to the improvements being implemented through the FOI improvement plan and for any continued assessment taking place?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, the FOI improvement plan is in response to the Scottish Information Commissioner's fourth progress report. It was published in January 2024. It has informed operational decisions that we have taken. We have concentrated on the areas of concern identified by the Commissioner, and those measures have ensured that we focus work on driving improvements across FOI quality, the case files, monitoring and handling and clearance policies. There have been a number of changes introduced as a result of the improvement plan to enhance processes and systems, and I think it explains why we've been able to maintain that 95% rate despite a significant increase in requests.
I call Paul O'Kane to be followed by Willie Coffey. Mr O'Kane.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. A substantial amount of this statement is not actually about the Martins report, perhaps because nobody's had a chance to see it, but actually about revisions to the Ministerial Code. And I note that despite being the gatekeeper and final arbiter of the Code, the First Minister is not, in fact, making this statement, rather delegating it to a Minister who didn't delete WhatsApps during the pandemic. But I wonder if I can ask about that position of gatekeeper and final arbiter, because it has been a problem in the past. So I note the changes announced to that independent advisers can launch investigations into alleged breaches without referral to the First Minister, but can the Deputy First Minister confirm that a complainer can go directly to an independent adviser and what the mechanisms for that would be?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, the First Minister could answer.
In terms of the Ministerial Code, the First Minister has obviously set out the details of the Ministerial Code. It will strengthen all processes to support transparency, accountability and independent scrutiny. And of course, it will be a case that the new code includes an enhanced role for the independent advisers, which allows them to initiate investigations into alleged breaches of the code when they feel it is warranted and without a direct referral from the First Minister.
I call Willie Coffey to be followed by Gillian Mackay. Mr Coffey.
Thank you. It's welcome that the updated Ministerial Code includes for the first time an explicit commitment around the use of corporate communication channels. Can the Deputy First Minister provide any further details around that commitment and how it was developed?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, I have set out today our position on our response to the Martins review, and specifically on the use of messaging apps. In terms of communication channels and the Ministerial Code, the First Minister has published that updated Ministerial Code, which includes clear commitments around what is expected.
I call Gillian Mackay, who is joining us remotely, to be followed by Audrey Nicholl. Ms Mackay.
Thanks, Deputy Presiding Officer. A key part of this review was to examine the value of instant messaging apps to ministers in emergency situations and to draw on best practice used in other countries across the world. How has the Scottish Government considered its preparedness for communicating during future emergencies in its response to this review?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, Gillian Mackay raises an important point, and in our response to Module 1, we will set out our response to the recommendations that have been made by the COVID inquiry on the questions of preparedness. In terms of internally within government, there is also a ministerial group looking at how we can learn the lessons, and that will include matters like effective communication, particularly to the public.
I call Audrey Nicholl to be followed by Alex Cole-Hamilton. Audrey Nicholl.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. As the Cabinet Secretary referenced in her statement, Ms Martin's report also addresses the Civil Service Code. So I wonder if the Cabinet Secretary can say any more about her engagement with the UK Government to ensure those recommendations which lie within their responsibility are properly addressed.
Deputy First Minister.
Well, I said in my statement that we expect these standards to be adhered to by all levels of leadership, and where there are recommendations for Scottish ministers, we have responded in this statement. Where there are recommendations for the civil service, we are conscious that the Civil Service Code is within the responsibility of the UK Government, and I will write to the UK Government to draw their attention to those recommendations, and I will also write to other devolved governments as well.
I call Alex Cole-Hamilton to be followed by Jamie Green.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Presiding Officer, nothing in today's statements will retrieve those WhatsApp messages that we know were being deleted on a wholesale basis throughout the Scottish Government's handling of the pandemic. Nothing in today's statement will offer closure or answers to the families of the COVID bereaved. And in those deleted messages lay the culture and the calculation of the decisions under which we all lived, and sadly far too many of us died. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary, or the Deputy First Minister, what confidence she can offer Parliament that a simple change in platform for messaging would prevent such a deception from ever happening again?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, can I also express my condolences and sorrow to everybody who suffered during the lockdown. Whilst it's now a couple of years beyond that period of the COVID pandemic, we know just how horrendously difficult it was and how people had to respond to those challenges. That's why we are committed to learning the lessons, participating fully in the UK and the Scottish COVID inquiries, and why we have set out today our response to the Martins Review, which was commissioned by the Government to look particularly at the questions of use of technology, because that dominated parliamentary debate and external scrutiny during the coverage of Module 2. And we have set out quite clearly today our response, which includes no longer using commercially controlled mobile messaging apps.
I call Jamie Green to be followed by Evelyn Tweed. Mr Green.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I believe that the late delivery of the Martins report was, I'm afraid, deliberate, and I find that to be extremely unhelpful and quite disrespectful in this instance. I also listened carefully to what the Deputy First Minister had to say, and I have to say I think it's very naive to think that civil servants will not continue to use WhatsApp and text messages to communicate one with another. And I also think it's very naive to assume that they won't use personal devices if such means of contact are banned on government devices. So I guess what I'm asking is, will it be clear to civil servants what they can and cannot do? Will it be clear what enforcement can take place within the workplace within the Scottish Civil Service? And can I ask for some clarity and confirmation that the Permanent Secretary will respond in detail to the Martins report so that this Parliament can scrutinise it further in due course?
I've been very clear, but I'm happy to repeat it again, that not only will the policy change so that either ministers or officials do not use these apps, but it will be configured to ensure that the apps can't be downloaded in the first place. Now, this isn't the first time that we've done this, because our technical environment already ensures that no official or minister can download TikTok, for example. So it is something that is within our gift to do. As I said also, we will develop these policies and we will develop the training of these policies between now and the implementation in spring 2025, so that there is total clarity on what is permitted and what is not permitted. And as I also said before, but I'll repeat, all ministers have a corporate device and are expected to use that for government business, and all members of staff who need a device will be issued with a corporate device. So between the training, the configuration of the technical environment and the issuing of corporate devices, that will ensure that this policy is fully implemented.
And I call Evelyn Tweed.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. It is important that the 7 principles of public life are upheld in the context of changing work practices in modern digital workplaces. Can the Deputy First Minister speak further about the interaction with the principles of public life in relation to modern communication needs?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, those principles should be reflected in the way that ministers and the Scottish Government act and interact, and that extends to the use of modern communication. There are many workplaces that are grappling with the rapid change and evolution of technology, particularly during the COVID lockdown period. I will also write to the UK Government and other devolved governments on those principles, because some of those requirements and recommendations are specifically for the Civil Service Code.
Thank you, Deputy First Minister. That concludes the ministerial statement. Apologies to the one additional member I was not able to take, given that time is moving on and we need to move on to the rest of the afternoon's business. And indeed, there will be a short pause before we move on to the next item of business to allow front bench teams to change position. Thank you.